So we all know about Allen keys and screwdrivers and things like that, but what are some of the specialty tools for working on bikes that you will only find when working on bikes? If you're a bike mechanic, none of these are going to be any surprise to you. You've seen them all and much, much more. But for anybody who's just starting to do bike repair or is just curious, I wanted to show you some of the specialty tools that we use to work on our bikes. A few simple ones first. This is a spoke wrench. I have another video that shows how to true wheels and what this is for, but basically fits around the base of the wheel right on the spoke and can tighten or loosen it in order to straighten out the wheel. This is a cable cutter. You may have used a needle nose plier or the tip of some dikes or something like that to cut cables. It works, but this works better. There's going to be less fraying on the cable, and it's a lot easier. Just squeeze it and braided cables are cut, no problem. This is a cassette remover. In order to remove the cassette, those chain rings at the back of a mountain bike or a road bike, this fits in there, and then you attach a wrench onto here to turn it. That's a cassette remover. This is a pedal wrench. I probably don't need to explain anything more about that. Some pedals can't be removed with a hex, and you need a pedal wrench to do it because it's kind of a narrow spot. Any narrow wrench will work, but pedal wrenches can get in there and get the pedal off without scratching the crank arm. This is a truing stand, and this is a very cheap truing stand. I think this is only 50 bucks. You put the wheel in here, the rim sits in the middle here, and when you spin the rim, it goes in either of these pins, and you can keep moving them in until the wheel is dead straight. Of course, you're adjusting the spokes as you go along to line up the wheel. This is a whip. When you're taking a cassette on or off, the chain ring on the back of a fixed gear bike, you have to hold it in place. So you can kind of wedge this and this together to turn the ring, to tighten it, or hold it in place when you're loosening it. This is a cheap spanner. This spanner is mainly used on one-piece cranks, where the bottom bracket has that little ring that holds the bearings in place. Typically, you only see this on a cheap BMX bike or a cruiser. So cruiser bikes, very, very common with this if they're, like a department store kind of bike. A lot of mountain bikes these days wouldn't even really need this tool for anything. This is to remove the cups from headsets. A lot of headsets actually press into the head tube of the bike, and in order to get them out, some people take a screwdriver, they stick them inside the head tube, and they bang it with a hammer. What this is, so let's say this is the head tube. We pull this up through the bottom, then it clicks into place, we slam it down, and it knocks the cup out of the head tube in one shot without bending anything or denting anything. This is a crank puller. Crank arms, once you tighten them on, they are on really good. It's very hard to get them out. So this screws into the base of the crank arm, and then you tighten this part, and it kind of pushes against the spindle and pulls the crank out as you're turning this. This is a really clever part. There's a few different types. Not every crank takes the same one, but this is a crank puller, and you need it to get cranks off. If you ever try to get a crank off without a crank puller, you can't really do it. This is a chain breaker. I have a whole video explaining how to use chain breakers. Remove links, add links, tighten, loosen links, everything having to do with chains. Chain breaker or chain tool will do. I don't know if we really want to consider this a tool, but I wanted to mention it anyway. This is a wedge that you can stick into your disc brake when the wheel is off to prevent it from compressing. Your bike might have come with these, or your disc brake might have came with these, and you should actually keep them around, because if you're taking your wheels on and off your bike, you should really put this in place to make sure that they don't compress. This is one of my favorite tools in the world. It's called a third hand, and what it does is, let's say you're adjusting a derailleur, and you're kind of pulling that cable tight and trying to put tension on the derailleur. Now, how the hell are you going to tighten the bolt here to hold the cable in place? That's where the third hand comes in. This is a very cheap one. I think it was 12 bucks or something like that. Basically, you take this, put it on the cable, and you squeeze it, and this part clamps the cable, and then it holds at the base there and tensions it. So you can do that with one hand, and then you can tighten it with the other. This is great if you're doing derailleurs, brakes, anything like that. This is a headset and bottom bracket cup press. Like I said, a lot of new mountain bikes, we never use this for anything. But BMX bikes and older mountain bikes, you do need this. Basically, let's say you're pressing headset cups, which are pressed in. Here's the head tube, and now we're tightening this down, and it's going to push inward here. So these two things are going to come inwards, and it's going to slowly push the cup in without damaging anything. Much better than a hammer. Now, this isn't specifically a bike tool, but a lot of bike shops will have this. This is a pipe cutter. So for steel or aluminum handlebars, if you're cutting them down, you can use a hacksaw, or you can use this. This makes a nice, clean cut. Basically, the way it works is, this can tighten in and out, so I can make it smaller or larger. Now, if you look here, there's these kind of wheels on the inside, and then there's this sort of wheel right here. So, if you want to cut a pipe, you mark the spot you want to cut. You line it up here, and you go around a circle, and it's going to score it. And then you keep tightening things down and going around another circle, tightening it until it perfectly cuts the pipe. And there's not going to be any unevenness. There's not going to be any marks where the hacksaw missed or anything like that. Much better way to cut a pipe than a hacksaw. This is a suspension pump. It has a gauge here. The pressure goes up really high, and you screw the end on here. It's actually kind of the same attachment as a Schrader valve, but you can't just use a normal Schrader pump to pump up any sort of suspension. You'll probably fail miserably if you try. This is a home repair stand. As you can see, it folds up very small. I don't have a garage, I just have this closet here. That's where all my bikes and all my stuff goes. This right here, put the bike on, crank this little piece into place, and you have the bike held up. This bike actually holds on kind of weird. I have to put it all the way down the seat tube because this brake mount in the way, and then of course I don't want to mount it on the dropper post. But alright guys, so I know there's more tools, some of which I don't even have, like brake bleed kits and stuff like that, but tell me your favorite tool that we haven't mentioned below, or tell me about a specialty tool that might be little known in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.